Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 122 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 122 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Welcome. If you've been here before, you know the deal. I love you deep. Thank you so much for continuing to support. Before we dive into this week's episode, I always like to make sure that I set the proper foundation. I want to make sure that we're building this safe space on really important, solid foundation. And that foundation is built on clarity and love. Clarity is really straightforward. I just want to make sure that you understand that the Well Done Life podcast is a podcast that I created for women. I created this space because I really feel that women are the foundation of society, and we need an opportunity where we can share, learn, and grow together. So that is why you are here. Welcome. Along with that, I also like to make sure that I built this on a really other very important tenet, which is one of my favorite things, and that is love, because love is a thing. And I want to make sure that you know that you are loved and thought of and well received in this space. And when I do that, I like to do that through prayers. So this week, I want to make sure that I am sending you each prayers of empathy. We're going to talk more about that this week, but empathy is really important. It is very important for us to remember that we don't have any idea the things that other people are facing. And if we can look at each other with an empathetic eye, we possibly could learn, we could be expanded. And that is something that we all need and should aspire for. So sending you all prayers of empathy. I'm also sending you prayers of love because I want you to feel love from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Love is a thing and you deserve it. You deserve all the love, and it's good love too. I'm talking about love that just feels like sunshine and is reciprocal. So I am sending you prayers of that as well. I'm also sending you prayers of perseverance because it is tough. I cannot believe the fact that we are almost in September and it's like August flew by. And I don't know about for y'all, August has been quite a month and we're being pulled and stretched in so many different ways. So I want to make sure that I am sending you prayers of perseverance, that you can do anything that you are facing, that you just have to face it and believe that you can face it, that you can move through any mountain. It might not be on the timing that you want it to be, but when it's your time, I promise you nothing will get in the way. So do not give up on yourself. And finally, I'm also sending you prayers of hope. Believe me, we're going to dive more into this in this episode, but don't give up hope on yourself. Don't give up hope on other people. Don't give up hope in your dreams. All you have to do is have the faith of a mustard seed, a small amount of faith. And if you nurture that faith and if you till into that faith, you will be very surprised how it will take you. So do not lose sight. Do not lose hope. All things are working, even when it doesn't make sense. So now that you know why you're here, and I hope that you feel the love in my prayers, let's start to wind ourselves into this week's episode. We are still in our series, which I'm really excited. I hope everyone is enjoying the Fall Into Self series that Crissy Diaz and I developed for the podcast. We are on episode 3. Episode 2 last week just launched in regards to finding and living in your purpose. And I really want to thank Valerie Moses and Yolanda Holiday, as well as Crissy, for being on that episode and talking through finding and living in our purpose, because it's hard. Finding your purpose is not easy, and being able to have the courage to live in it is definitely something that a lot of us are aspiring to, and we need encouragement on the journey. We're still always working toward our purpose. So I hope that you find some inspiration in that episode. I will make sure it's linked in the show notes. But this week, we're taking it a step further. This week, more healing begins. And believe me, it's not healing just for you. It's healing for me. It's healing for all of the ladies on this episode as we begin to kind of dive a little bit deeper into two very tough topics. This week is about family ties. And with family ties, Crissy and I, we kind of wanted to dive into our family dynamics because many of us have very complicated or very loving relationships or just all types of relationships with family. And family has been defined in many different ways. It's not just blood. It could be people that treat you with regard and respect and love that is so strong that it supersedes genetics. And so we wanted to talk about our family ties and how they have influenced us and made us into the people that we are, because a lot of the things generationally that we go through in regards to trauma or even just our perception of other people and the relationships that we have are rooted in our relationships with our family. So we wanted to start this discussion dealing with family ties. And then a week from now, not next week, but the week after, we will be back with the second part of this, which will be centered around generational trauma and grief. And because, again, our goal is that if we are able to share some of our journeys with you and some of the things that we have gone through to heal and to expand ourselves, we are hopeful able to touch you to be able to have conversations within your family that may be able to help you be able to heal and expand. So I'm very excited this week to welcome Crissy, obviously back as my co-host. We're also welcoming Yolanda Holiday again, which she's fam now, so I'm really excited to have her here. As well as we also have a new guest, Christina, and I am not going to say her last name. It's beautiful, and I will butcher it, so I will let her introduce herself to you guys. And we're going to have an amazing conversation around family ties. So I encourage you to sit back and enjoy the conversation. And definitely, please don't hesitate after you guys hear the episode to share your feedback and your thoughts with us. Because if there's things that we can cover as we move, like I said, into generational trauma and grief, we want to do that so that we can, again, set that space for healing and real conversations. If you stand by, everyone will be with you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, it's me, Crissy D. Just here to represent for all of my mental health advocates and dog lovers and food lovers, and just ready to talk about this.
Yes, ma'am. Me too. And I love having you here. So thank you. And then, of course, now she's fam now. That's what we're going to call her, fam. She's been here enough. I'd like to introduce you guys again to Ms. Yolanda Holiday. Yolanda, tell the people what's up.
Yolanda Holiday. I currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's actually been 22 years, but I'm a Jersey girl. I'm excited to be here. I am mom to 2 wonderful adult children, and I am a passionate CEO and founder of 2 mission-driven businesses.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that you're here again, sharing your energy. Like I said, your family. So I'm really happy to have you here. And then we have a newbie, y'all. I have a wonderful new person who I have just met. And like I said, she feels like someone I've known for a while, which is kind of scary already, but that's so awesome. So I would love to introduce you guys to Christina. Christina, tell the audience all about you.
Hi, guys. I'm Christina Rendawa. I am currently a stay-at-home wife. I'm in my soft life era, and I live in Manassas, Virginia, the Northern Virginia area. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to discuss family ties.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you here. And yes, we are diving into family ties with this episode. So it's going to get a little deep, y'all. This is kind of like a beginning step into our next episode afterwards, which will be about generational trauma and grief. Because we know that we want to talk about living in purpose, but we also know that a lot of our trauma, a lot of the things that hold us back, are rooted in some of our relationships with our family and how we have navigated those. And so let's talk about it. The first question I have, I'm kind of going into it. What is one word that you would use to describe your current relationship with your family?
So I'll jump in there. And I would say for me, the one word would be disappointing.
We're going to dive into that. So I'm going to leave that there. So you got disappointed. Who wants to go next? Whew.
I'll go. I will just say I feel a little invisible with my family. I'll just use that word. I'm an only child, and I feel like I get left out a lot. So it's a little distant because of that. I feel invisible.
Oh, wow. So disappointed, invisible. Crissy, what about you?
I want to say, I don't know another word to say, but kind of like on the up. Like I've felt all those things, and now it's like where I'm just now learning to vocalize and stand up for myself, and they're just now learning to understand that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
not gonna hold it down.
And that's good, because that at least gives you some hope to think like it won't always be disappointing. It may not always feel where you're going to feel invisible, that there is some sense of it. For myself, I would say complicated. That's the best way I can put it. It's complicated. It's complicated because I have the disappointment and the invisibility sometimes. Not as much as I think I would like. Sometimes, which is scary to say that. And that's just me being 100% honest. And then sometimes I feel the highs of it all. So now that you guys have kind of like said that, and you think about those words that we were talking about, how did you feel about your family when you were growing up? Did you feel those same feelings that you just expressed when you were growing up with your family?
No, I didn't. I grew up, my parents did a decent job of bringing me around my cousins enough where we did form some type of bond and relationship. I think it just got harder as you got older. Dynamics change, people start moving. But as a kid, no, my family was my family.
Wow.
I felt seen.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say the same. No, I didn't feel that way growing up 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think that's where the disappointment comes from, because it's not what I'm used to. So the changes have made us not as close as we were. And that's not the expectation that was placed on us from our grandparents. And so being in this space versus when you lose people, I think there's a Facebook meme that when you lose the head of the family kind of loses its way. And we've done that 3 times over. So it went just a little bit more. And now it's just at this, what are we doing? This is not how we were raised. Why are we like this?
Yeah. What about you, Crissy?
Yeah, I can resonate with that, Yolanda, because I grew up complicated. My parents divorced. My dad got custody of me. I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I grew up with my dad and the Puerto Rican side of my family, and like as Puerto Rican white, like that side. And so it's just different, like on the weekends going to my mom's side of the family, which is on the other side of the train tracks, like all black. And, I'm getting called, like my nickname was Butter, and, because I was so yellow. So it was just like, I didn't at the time see the complications and the sneakiness or the putting stuff under the rug kind of thing. To me, it was just, this is how my life is. I just go back and forth every week. So as a kid, I didn't, that's why it got disappointing. Like Yolanda said, like when you get older and things change, it's like, well, dang, we were close, but now not so much.
Yep.
And I feel that because it's kind of like, I had relationships with my family growing up, like with my mom's side and my dad's side. But when I was young, I didn't know, I didn't know all the things that went behind the scenes of it all. I just knew that I would go to the farm every summer, because that's what my mom's family did. They were farmers, and we would spend 2 weeks in the hot, blistering summer in North Carolina, and my grandparents on my mom's side, they lived a very modest life, but I didn't know anything was wrong with that life. You know what I mean? I enjoyed getting on the trailer and doing all those things and playing football with my cousins. So I didn't know anything else. So I kind of feel like you did, especially you, Christina. I felt seen. I felt a part of the family. I totally understood it. So it wasn't always complicated, even though it was always complicated. I just didn't start to understand all of that behind the scenes until I got older, which makes me wonder, do you guys remember particularly when it changed? What happened that made you realize that, you know what, I'm not as seen. I am disappointed. It is complex. What occurred to make you identify that?
I think at some point in my 20s. So I'm 34. I'll be 35 at the end of this year. Somewhere in my mid 20s, where you're not seen as a kid by your family anymore. I think kids in the family are seen all the time. Let's get the kids together, Christmas or something like that. Someone's thinking of you. When you're an adult, I feel like, everyone's kind of growing up and their kids are growing up as adults now. And then people scatter a little bit. And then everyone started forming their own mini families. So my cousin's kids started having kids. And my aunts and uncles, like everybody has their little families. And they do what they want on holidays. And it's just me. So I'm like, well, where do I want to go? And so when I was local, I could choose a couple times. And I started moving out further myself. And then I'm just like, man, no one's even calling me. No one's inviting me. It just got really, really weird. I'm an introvert also. My mom is an extrovert. And so people started only talking to me through my mom. And I was like, why are they inviting me through you? Why aren't they why are they only asking you how I'm doing? My phone number's been the same for years.
Right.
And I started telling my mother, can you tell them to stop, to call me? I started getting so offended. So then she started speaking up for me, like, well, why don't y'all invite her to the cookout? Not through me. She's grown. If you want to invite her to something, call her. I'm like, why are people scared to call me? Why aren't people reaching out to me? It just got really weird. And it wasn't like that when we were younger.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that. What about anybody else? Do they remember when you first noticed that it was different?
For me, it's new. So we were close, regardless of what was happening. We still came together as family, gathered on holidays. I knew my family was there, and my grandmother passed in 2014. So it put a little dent in the family because she was our matriarch, and we all flocked to her. When it was holidays, we went to her. My aunt, who lived with her, continued that. So I always knew when I went home to New Jersey, Thanksgiving was at my aunt's house. I spoke to my grandmother every day. And when she passed, I started talking to my aunt every day. So when she passed October 11th, 2021, there was no more rock. There was no more censor. So like Christina said, it was holidays time. And, I knew where I was going when she was alive, but now she's not alive. Where am I going? The house where everyone else was joining, I didn't have a great relationship with that person. So I wasn't invited. So it just felt weird. My kids are grown and I have a great relationship with my kids, but they're grown. And I feel like I'm at that stage where I want them to live their life. We get together for Christmas. My daughter lives in California, way too much tracks to come home for both holidays. My son's in the military. He can't always leave. So I started feeling like family is just different. And it's only been a few months. It hasn't been a year yet that this disappointment has begun.
Wow. Yeah. It's how death can just really destroy it all. It is. Yeah. Crissy, what about you?
I think mine kind of started when I was 16. I've always looked up to my dad and respected my dad, but I think there was just a point where I just realized there has to be better than this. And only because my dad loved my stepmom a little too much. And so as a kid, I felt that because she had her kids with my dad and I was there, but all my friends called me like Cinderella because I always babysat them. I cleaned, I cooked, all of that. I never summer vacation. I watched my brothers and sisters like while they went to work, while all my friends got to travel. So I think finally, once I made the decision, like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I remember my older sister lived in New York at the time, and she booked me a flight when I was 16 to New York for the summer. And I spent the whole summer with her. And then when I came back, my siblings had been to Disney. They went on a cruise to the Bahamas. And I was like, wait a minute, y'all couldn't do that while I was here? And so that's when I started to realize, like, wow.
Yeah. And it's funny because I wasn't 16 when I noticed it. I think I got my first taste of the difference when I was probably 10. Because my mom's side of the family, like I said, they had more of a very modest life. They did. Lots of love, but not a lot of money. That was just the nature of the times. My grandfather was a sharecropper and was able to try to build a life outside of that. But then my dad's side of the family, they were more from the city. They had more, I guess, middle class wealth. And so it would be like, I would go and stay with my grandparents, with my mom, and my dad would come. We'd all be in this, modest house, and it was cool. And then we would just go and visit like his side of the family, not my grandmother, because his mother died when he was young. He was like 18. She passed away. And his father that's a whole nother conversation of trauma there. But I would notice that they would treat our family different. Like with Christmas gifts and stuff. And I know my mother would probably slap me for telling this story, but I'm totally going to tell it. But like they gave my mom like underwear for Christmas, like these white silky drawers that were so big. They looked like a tent when you held it up. I know, girl, it's so funny, but that is
terrible.
That is the level of petty, like that they were on. And it wasn't like all of them were like that. Like I had one amazing uncle, my dad's favorite uncle, as a matter of fact. He was always very down to earth and understanding. But like the rest of them, some of them were just a little different, always making like little comments about weight. Like you need to lose weight. You need to go on a diet. They were always, oh, you eat too much. And it created, that was the beginning to me of me seeing that these people don't really have my best interests at heart. And it was never that my father would say anything about them to me. My mother, on the other hand, she would. Now she was pissed off, but he never would. And I didn't ever get the full story. The full story, I'll probably talk more about that in generational trauma. But to me, that was the beginning of seeing that not all family is family. And I took that with me into my life. And so I totally understand what you guys are saying. It's like you start to see how you can go out and hang out and you can be cool. And then all of a sudden you notice the call stop coming or one person dies in this family and the whole dynamic changes. And it's just like you're thrown out. So it makes me wonder, how has knowing it and having these feelings and recognizing when the trauma just started, how have you now shaped that into your life? Like, how does that impact you guys as you are going forward and having relationships and building your own families?
I think for me, like experiencing that at 16, then after high school at 18, I up and moved to New York City. I was like, F y'all, I'm leaving Florida. Goodbye. I'm going away to this big city. Maybe y'all respect me now. But then, like Christina said, I didn't get phone calls. I didn't get like Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, none of that. And we spent every holiday, on my dad's side, we spent every holiday together, every birthday together. So it was just different experiencing that. But I think that it kind of molded the way that I chose my friends, because like they say, friends are family members that you actually get to choose. So it's like I chose different people based on what I wanted a big sister to be like, or, navigated towards, older women that I thought, because I didn't grow up with a mom, that I thought, oh, this would be nice to have a motherly relationship with this woman. So I think it kind of just made me lean into people with certain expectations that maybe I should not have put on them in my younger years. And now that as I'm getting older, I'm realizing like my family, they only had the tools that they were given from their ancestors or whoever raised them. That was the tools that they were given, and that's all that they knew how to give me. So I just kind of have give them a little bit more grace now, which is why I say we're on the up and up, because I feel like now it's different. The way that we communicate, the way that I'm able to express myself with them is more beneficial to our relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And the fact that you can give grace. Because not all of us are at that point, believe me.
I don't want to always, honey. I had a conversation with my grandparents who are Trump supporters this weekend. I didn't want to race this weekend, but that's another story.
Oh, yes. God bless. What can you do? What about you, Christina? How about you?
It's been a journey. I'll say, like Crissy said, I started shaping my friends like the family I wanted. Her saying that hearing you say that you made friends with older women, I've noticed that I've always oddly made friends with women maybe a generation ahead of me, no matter where I went, especially in the workplace. These are my buddies. We would go hang out, go to lunch. This is my girl, but they would be like, I keep forgetting you're like 10 years younger than me. And I'm like, who cares? Who cares? We're hanging out. And this is in my 20s, but also, I was a little desperate for friends at times, and that actually had a ripple effect later, because when you do figure out who you are and what you deserve, you realize a lot of these people weren't your friends. And so it's been a little lonely as I got older, because I didn't make good day ones. I didn't make good friends in the beginning. So that's how that shaped out. As far as relationships, for the longest time, I was like, I don't want to get married. I'll never pressure you for marriage. I don't care, blah, 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 blah. And even leading up to my wedding, people were like, do you have the jitters? Are you nervous? And I was like, no, you can get divorced. I don't care. I believe in divorce. I've been very nonchalant and like laid back about it, because I kind of come from a broken family. Like my parents divorced when I was 3. My father remarried somewhere around when I was about 8 or 9. But my stepmother had been in my life since I was 5. Technically, they started dating around that age. So, I did not have a good relationship with her. Kids know who likes them and who don't like them. I knew she did not like me. She made it clear. She actually said it, like to other people, other adults, even family members. Yes, even my family members. Her kids were about 13 years plus older than me. So she would say, I'm done raising my kids. I don't want to raise nobody else's. I remember being 5 years old, going to my stepsister's high school graduation. That's how big of a gap we had. And so I felt that in the household when my father took custody of me when I was 7. So I could feel that when she was raising me, and I tried to get close to her, and she was actually better with smaller children. So when I was really little, she was really good with me. But as I got older, it got kind of shaky, and she just got distant and cold towards me and so mean. But ultimately, back to what I was saying about relationships, it made me kind of not care about marriage or staying in a relationship from time to time. I just became really nonchalant and whatever about it. Now that's changed too. I don't feel that way anymore, clearly. But it's been a journey in shaping how I feel about relationships and friendships.
Wow. What about you, Yolanda?
So because my disappointment started at an older age. I'm 46. So the disappointment started within the last year. But the reason for the disappointment is what started years ago. So my family was when we go for holidays, they were my sunshine on cloudy days, for lack of a better phrase. I grew up in a single parent home. It was just me and my mother. And I can say every day now this is something that I would have never shared before this season. So the disappointment has actually forced me to grow. And forced me to communicate my story instead of covering it up or feeling like I had to protect others, actually looking at how it affected me. So from like 5 years old is the earliest age I can remember to the time I moved out around 15 years old. Every day, I hate you. I wish you were never born. And so living in that and then going to the family house, it's like I'm miserable until we get there. But when we get there, it's everything. Growing up, you're a little girl. Why are you saying these things? You are taught to protect the person who it was abuse, who was actually abusive. There was some alcohol issues. There were some drug issues. I was very protective of my mother despite how she treated me. And I always made excuses for her. So in relationships, as I got older, I needed to be needed. So if you needed me, I took you in. I didn't really grow like I was there to do for you, but it wasn't a connection. It was, how can I serve you? And that's how I carried myself in relationships as I got older. And it wasn't until last year, maybe, I started reevaluating some things like, we're only friends because you had a moment in life that I saw where you needed me, but we wouldn't be friends if that wasn't the case. And so I in the last couple of months, I've had to let some people go. Some people don't understand it. I don't feel the need to explain it to everyone. But in this season, I can say, despite of how my relationship. So when I mentioned, Thanksgiving was at a family member and I wasn't invited, that was my mother. She went and had Thanksgiving dinner and had other people come, but she didn't invite me. Knowing that I put it out there at my aunt's funeral, we should all get together for my aunt. And I know now she does things. If you know someone with narcissistic personality disorder, she's like a poking bear. I know for the first time at my aunt's funeral that night, there were some things that happened, and I unleashed I went out of protection mode to, you're going to own this. This is how our relationship has been. I am no longer here to serve you. You're going to have to do better or there will be no relationship with me. And I am your only daughter. So I meant it. If she ever wanted a relationship, I told her we have to go to counseling. Like it's always, she stops talking to me for a year because of a spades game. I'm there when she comes back. She stopped talking to me because of this. Like it never makes sense, but what happens is she carried that ache. I was the reason she couldn't have what everyone else had. She was young. She couldn't go to college. The man she wanted left her. So I represent all of that. So she went from telling me those things to just showing me, to feeling entitled, like you owe me. So therefore, you have to do. And all these years, I'm there to do whatever you want me in. I'm there for whatever. And finally, at 45, after my aunt passed, I was like, no more. Like, this is not happening. So for me now, I've condensed my circle. I am intentional about who I let in. I've done the work to heal from. That's a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, a lot of holding in. It's still a process, but I've done a lot of the work over the last couple of months that I feel secure in my decisions now of who I let in. And I'm not open to letting the right people in. So it's not a bad story. It's 3 months ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be boohoo crying because I'm not ready. And now it's like, I get it. I understand that our perception of what a mother is or what that relationship should be is something that we were told, but it's not the case all the time. And it's not anything that I could do to change it.
Yeah.
Girl, that is so deep.
Oh, yes. I'm going to say, that is crazy.
That is so deep. I'm like, I feel like for you, Yolanda, like you're in like the prime of your life. Like it can only get better.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Yeah. Wait till the book comes out.
Oh, girl.
I can't wait to read it because I I'm so surprised, and not really, I guess, that you're going through that now at this point of life. Because at this point of life, I feel like you said, Christina, you're in your soft life. Like I'm trying to enter in. I'm in my soft phase, and so I'm trying not to fight with people anymore. But I understand what you're saying. Like, I guess I'm very fortunate. My mother and father grew up very differently, but they created a very quiet, small family. Like, it was just me and my dad, my sister and my mom together. I have a brother. My brother and I were not raised together. My brother has a different father than I do. And it is the bastion of my complexity is that relationship. There, because of the traumas, and it's just so much trauma. But I feel like my parents tried to do everything in their power to shield us, my sister and I, from that trauma. So like we would visit, but we would spend time there. And I wasn't raised around my family as much as when I was younger. As we got older, the trips kind of luckily, they kind of tamped down because of school and work. And I think just naturally, being frank, at certain points in our life, we just didn't want to go. And so our parents were like, they understood, just because it's just the complexities. It wasn't anything that anyone did. It was just, I think our eyes started to be open to the fact that there was just so much trauma going on behind the scenes that you just can't hide it anymore. And we're seeing it and we're impacted by it. So our parents just trying to understood, and they were just like, cool. I'm just gonna, you guys, we're gonna focus on this. So I didn't have big Christmases or anything like that. And I have to admit, for myself with a relationship, it does make it very hard for me to open up to other people, because I'm just used to living in this square of these people who I trust with everything that I have. And so I don't really, I process friendship. I love my friends. We're very close. I'm there for them. But at the same time, it's always going to go back to the core center for me, which is those people in my immediate square. And so I never tried to think about introducing friends to family. And like, if I think about it, most people don't even know I have a brother. Like, I wasn't as open about sharing him and the relationship. And it's like twofold. One, because it's complex. And when I was younger, my idea of dealing with complexity was I was ashamed of it and I would just hide it, versus being open and honest about it. Luckily, I've grown past that. And then just trying to navigate how that impacts my life, and just not feeling like I get taken advantage of because of a situation that was totally outside of my control. And that's why our relationship is complex. Like, I love him, but I question whether he loves me. And I have told him as much. I was like, I love you, but I don't believe you love me. And he's like, I love you. He keeps telling me he does, but sometimes I don't believe it, because your actions and your words just don't line up. I feel like I'm just an ATM for you. Or you just want to blame me because I had in your mind more opportunity than you did. But it's not like mom and dad went to college for me. It's not like I went to college for myself. You know what I mean? And then he has a complex relationship with my mom as well. And I resent it. I resent it to the core of my soul. I have to pray myself through, like, every day. I know he's trying, and I have to pray my attitude, like, God, give me the strength to be able to change some of my feelings at times about him, because he's trying, and try to be gentle. You know, my dad was not his father, but before my dad died, he tried to explain to me, cut him a break, you know, be gentle with him, try to give a little bit of empathy and understanding. So I have carried that, and I try to do it. My love is still there, but I don't like you. I love you, but I don't like you. And I had to be okay with that. And I struggle. So I totally get where y'all are coming from. It is complex, to say the least, about these relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, because I felt like that about my mom, and people didn't understand, like, but that's your mom. That's your mom. And I'm like, okay, but like I was raised by my dad, and I don't know what it means to be a daughter to a mother. Like, I don't know what it means to have a mother, because I was raised by my dad and a woman who didn't treat me like she was my mom. So, even when my mom was like in the hospital and her brothers, my uncles would be, that's your mom, you need to do this and do that. I said, I don't need to do anything. Like, we don't have that relationship like you had with your mother. So you can't put those expectations on me. And so, yeah, it's definitely hard for people, especially from the previous generations, to understand that, no, I don't have to do anything. Just like y'all didn't make her get up and raise me and get off the street, did you? So I don't have to get up and go be there for her. So, it's one of those things, and until you break it down for people, sometimes like dumb it down, then they don't get it.
Right.
I think that is an issue. Most people are like, you only get one mom, or,
Right.
If my mom was still here, and they see their situation, but they don't realize there are other situations. And by you guilting that person or trying to guilt that person into being there, you don't know the mental or emotional stress that you're causing on that person, because now they're dealing with their reality, and now they're dealing with the reality you're trying to push on them, which is your reality, and that's not the case. You have to persevere for yourself. You have to realize when it is too toxic, it may be time to walk away. And that takes a different type of strength, because it's hard to walk away. You don't want to walk away, especially if you're a human. Automatically, we care for other people, but sometimes we just have to cut those strings.
Yeah, so true. And just like you said, Yolanda, how you were protective of your mom. Like, I was protective of my mom in a sense of like, you're not going to just handle my mom or talk to my mom any kind of way. But at the same time, like, it was just a weird, awkward, and no one would really understand it but me and her. But, end of the day, when she passed last year, I did what I had to do to make sure she had a great funeral. She's buried next to her mother. And that when they called me and said, Ms. Diaz, the tombstone has been placed, I just cried, because that was like my final farewell. Thank you for bringing me into this world. But I just the weight off my shoulders. I don't have to do anything else to make sure that she's okay. Now I can go and live my life now.
Yeah.
That's why YOLO is my word now.
Absolutely. And I don't think it always has to be like that that finality. Like, even though like sometimes I question whether like my brother loves me and all that kind of stuff. And I still love him. Somehow inside of myself, like I said, I speak over me, because I can't change him. I speak over me in regards to how I deal with him. And I still try to find empathy, because it's kind of like what you were talking about, Christina and Yolanda and Crissy. It's like, you got to find a little bit of grace somewhere deep in the recesses of your soul. Because I always feel like, yes, I know you got to look under the table for it. You got to try to figure it out. But what did it take to get to that point? That's my thing. Because if I think about it, I'm trying to think. Like, I have to admit, I've become more tolerant, because now I have made the decision. I am not going back and forth with anybody. Like the last blowout argument that I had with my brother over him lying to me and whatever, I literally yelled at him so hard. I literally lost my voice. Like, I felt sick for like 2 days, just arguing with him. And I was just pissed. And I was just, and that's on me. That's my trauma, my anger, my fear, my emotion. I'm trying to project it on you because I want you to feel bad for hurting me. But my question then to you is, to all of you, when do you get to a point where you realize that has to stop?
For me, it was the night of my aunt's funeral, when for the very first time, I physically could see myself putting my hands on my mother. She got nasty with me for the last time, and she's a get in your face type. Normally, I will, just walk away. At that moment, and my daughter was present, so that made it even worse because I never wanted her to see me that way. I was beyond angry. I did not put my hands on her, but I knew 2 more minutes, it would have happened. And I only backed down because I looked at my daughter's face and she was like, "Ma, no." And I will say that was all those years of holding it in, and you're going to be nasty to me like in this moment. You just lost a sister. I just lost the closest thing to a mom that I knew growing up, and you want to be nasty for no reason? Like, yeah, this isn't going to go well, not for you. So I suggest we just walk away. And she just would not back down. It was like, you can't keep sticking a poking bear. Now, I will say this, she's still my mother. I still love her. In this moment, right now, if something was to happen and she needed me, I'm one way to take care of whatever she needs, but I'm coming back home. Like, we're not going to pretend like this didn't happen because, I know that's your thing. I'm serious about we have to go and speak with someone and actually deal with it because she won't own any of it. I know she knows it. She remembers it. She likes to pretend those blackout phases. She can't remember. I know that's not true because you remember other things. So the fact that I know that I could have violently put my hands on you lets me know that we can't do any of this until we sit down and have the conversation and you own what you have done.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of foresight on your part. And I'm so glad that you were able to have that type of wherewithal to stop that. Because I always think when moments like that happen and we black out, we're not thinking about, like you said, the long-term effects, not just to your mother, but to yourself, to your psyche,
right,
to your spirit, and to your daughter behind that. So I'm so glad that you were able to hold yourself back. Christina, what about you? Do you recall like a moment where you was like, okay, I got to put the pause on this. I can't.
Yeah. So I'm fully estranged from my stepmother now. I do not speak to her. I do not claim her. People know not to mention her to me. She's no longer a family member for me. And my father passed in 2012. I felt like that was the beginning of feeling free from her. But out of respect and I guess love, I kept visiting and calling and coming around for Christmas to make sure she had something because she has severe narcissistic traits. And because of that, she doesn't have a relationship with her own children. And she doesn't have many friends. She doesn't have anybody. She has a favorite niece, and she really butters up that niece. So that niece will come and take care of her. Outside of that, even her own siblings, people just love her from a distance. The year my father passed, I was actually living with them. And I think I was 24 at the time. And I don't know. Sorry, I just blinked for a second. Sorry. And I could see that no one was visiting. No one was calling. I'm like, what happened to all the family that used to come in? People over the years don't want to deal with her. So at about 27 years old, my father had been gone for a couple years or a few years at that point. And I went to visit her for Christmas to give her gifts. My husband at the time, we were just dating. And I even told him, stay in the car, don't come in. Because I already knew, she's one of those people, y'all. I'm going to be quick, but I just want to make sure she's okay. And so I came in, I gave her gifts. I've learned to give her exactly what she asked for, because outside of that, she will never be satisfied or happy. She was still not satisfied and happy. And on top of that, she started trash talking my father for the first time. I've never heard her talk about him like that. And I will say one thing. She did right by my father. She ain't like nobody else in this life. She liked him. She catered to him. And I think that's why he put up with how she treated me. He was a bit silent on that. I have an issue with him on that now. I kind of just came to terms with. But I have never heard her talk about him like this. She was calling him names. And I remember sitting at the dining room table looking at her like, little do you know, you are about to never see my ass again. This is where I draw the line. And I noticed I couldn't figure out why she did that. And years later, I realized it's a narcissistic thing. Like, what else can I do to hurt you? I've hurt you in all these ways. She's emotionally abusive. What else can I do to poke at you? I haven't tried this yet. And of course, my father's gone. He's not there to defend himself in any way. And I was like, here's your gift. I smiled. Her niece was there, her favorite niece, and she was standing off in the doorway. And I remember her face was like, no. Even she knew, like, girl, what are you doing? And she tried to say stuff and laugh it off. And it was just so hurtful. What did I do to you? Like, why? And so I stayed for about 15 minutes. I left. She did not hear or see me ever again. And the sad part of that is my stepmother kind of would travel for work. I honestly don't know. She would not tell me. She was also very secretive. She refused to tell me about her jobs, what she did. Who cares? But she would travel out of the country. So she would give that's what she told me. She would give her phone to her niece and stuff. So when I used to try to get in contact and say, happy birthday or this and that, I would hear nothing for weeks. When a family member would pass and I would let her know, then I would get a message from her in 2 days. And she's like, sorry, such and such has my phone because I'm out of the country. And it was just, she was almost trying to like make it very clear she did not want this relationship anymore. And so me going to visit her that one Christmas, and I was like, that on top of this, what is the point? So after that, I never called and she never called me. It took months. I think it was almost a year for her to realize, oh, Crissy hasn't reached out to me. And And I think from that point on, since I stopped visiting and reaching out, she just realized like she's caught on. And now there's no coming back. It's been such a long pause. What do I say now? You know, because I think she knows I'm waiting to hear from her. Like, yeah, call me so I can call you out. But yeah, just never heard from her. My family members, some of them still hear from her, but at a certain point she cut them off. My mother, I think she has narcissistic traits too, but not nearly as bad as my stepmother. Our relationship is rocky because she partially didn't raise me. You know, in the early years, when she sent me to live with my dad, it was because of her work schedule. It wasn't because of like poverty or drugs or mental health issues. She decided like, whoo, this single parent life is hard. And I had like a really close bond with my dad. And she knew that. My mom was a career woman. She wanted to work, not be a mommy. And I just think some women are like that, and that's okay. They need support though. And my dad had moved on and met my stepmom. He said, you know, we have a stable life here. We have a home. We're home by 5. Dinner's on the table. We have a school within walking distance. Why don't you send her to live with us? She jumped for it, said, sure. They didn't even go to court. They didn't do anything in the courts. Like, I went with my dad for the summer and just never went back with my mom. I never noticed. I loved my dad. I loved it over there. And I was like, I get to stay here. This is so cool. Like, I was happy. Like, there was no trauma around that. And, you know, my mom would just get me in the summer and for holidays. And I don't know at what point. I think she came back to get me when I was 11. I think I had started hitting my puberty a little bit. And she was like, okay, this is, you know, my stepmom was getting worse. She came back and got me. And it's been rocky. Our relationship, our bond, it ain't really there. I'm also polar opposite from her. She's extremely extroverted. I'm extremely introverted. She doesn't understand me. Or at least that's how I felt growing up. And, you know, she believes in tough love. What you crying for? You can't cry over everything, you know, and I'm like, I'm sensitive. Like, sometimes you got to meet your kids where they're at, you know. Tough love ain't for everybody. Like, I don't know. It wasn't for me. And she was just too hard, too hardened. And so that really messed up our bond. I don't really know where, I mean, I still have a relationship with her. I still love her. We're still working on it. We're still working through it. I do know I've said a couple of things that have silenced her at times, which shocked me because she's loud and will talk over you and will not listen to anything you say. But I kind of regret it because I'm a nice person. But at one point I told her, because I cut people off if I'm like, and she knows I'm not going to cut her off. So at one point during an argument, I said, you know, if you weren't my mother, I would never speak to you again. And she just got quiet. I think that really hurt her. I don't think I've ever seen her be hurt from anything I've said to her. And I just think maybe that did something to her a little bit. I also have been confronting her a lot about things in my childhood that I've come to terms with now. And I'm like, that wasn't normal. And I don't think you should have done that. You know, I don't know what was in the air in the year 2020 or what, but since that year, we've been starting some hard conversations. And, you know, naturally she had her meltdowns about it. Oh, I can't do nothing right. You just think I was the worst mother. You know, she's victim. And I'm like, I don't care. No, we're going to talk about this. Because I'm noticing like these are things as I'm getting older and I'm trying to family plan. I wouldn't do that. And I'm watching my friends parent and I'm watching my friends with their mothers. Oh, man, that's when I noticed it the worst. I didn't know. I thought everyone had this kind of relationship until I noticed how my friends' moms were. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't get any of that. I didn't get any of this. I really missed out on a lot. And so I've been confronting her about quite a bit. There's gaps in her memory where she's like, remember we did this? Remember we did that? And I don't remember any of it. And I was like, why is she just flat out lying like this? What is with this lying she's been doing lately? And then one day it dawned on me. I said, I think my mom forgets there's a gap in time where I didn't live with her.
Yeah.
So the things she thinks we did, I just wasn't there. You didn't do those with me. I don't know who you did those things with, but you actually didn't take me there and do that. And we didn't eat that. I've never eaten this before. You know, like we didn't do this. I don't know what you're talking about. And I've started to tell her that. What year was this? I started asking a real specific question. What year was this? And she's like, oh, it was such and such. And I was like, I was with daddy. I was with daddy those years, you know, and stuff like that. So I have mommy issues.
Well, I was going to ask you, because when I see my friends interact with their moms and they have a good relationship with their moms, then they come back and like, oh, my mom is such da da da. And it's like, girl, I would love to have a mom that's doing what she's doing for you. Like, girl, you would be happy and enjoy that because she could be the total opposite. And then you be
yes.
Mama.
Man, I went to college and it was very hard for my peers at the time. The first year of college, oh God, everyone was so homesick, literally crying. I miss my mom. Their moms are like bi-weekly sending them care packages of their favorite snacks. I thought you would miss your Nintendo, you know, and they would mail it to them, just always thinking of them, popping up on them and surprising them. And, you know, just, you could tell, you could feel their cord was strong with their mom. And, you know, my mom ain't never sent me nothing. My mom was in Florida. I never got a care package, honey. I didn't get anything like that. I got dropped off. I did a summer program. Yep, I got dropped off with trash bags. My stuff was in black trash bags. She did not buy me on campus housing. She didn't sign me up for that. I stayed with my aunt who lived down the street from the college. And and I didn't even have a bed. One of my aunts was like, I got a pull-out sofa. And so my mom was like, well, come get it. I slept on a pull-out sofa for a year at my aunt's house and that I moved in with black trash bags. That's the big difference in what I saw with my friends to what my mom gave me. And I was like, oh, no.
Wow. Well, Pamela.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm very fortunate. Like I said, I have a wonderful mother. I love her dearly. I had a great father. The relationship was not always easy. my mom and I butted heads constantly. And we still probably butt heads now, according to her. But she's acquiesced because she's 75 and trying to get into heaven. She's just like, whatever. But it took us as adults figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
It took us as adults figuring that out. Like, for something, our relationship changed when I became her caregiver. After my father died suddenly in 2010. And even though our relationship was good, but it got deeper when she came to be with me and my sister, and she's lived with us since 2010. And like now, I remember one time she told me, I'm yours. You're mine now. Like I was my father's, I was a daddy's girl. And now I'm hers. But I think the one differentiating thing was I finally got to uncover the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got to understand why she never, like my mom was not the huggy kind of type growing up and the very emotional type of person. And now, like we say, I love you all the time. And we force that out of her. So I say that to you guys because I want you to know it's never too late in certain cases when people are open to healing to have those kind of situations. Because like I said, I'm not saying I had a bad relationship. I didn't, but I was that kid in college. I never wanted to go home. Child boo. I was like, they can send me these care packages and pay these bills. Thank God. I love you for that. But no, I was not the kid trying to go home. And like my mom in my senior year, my mom's significantly taller than I am. I might be 5 feet, but I remember like right before I graduated, I pushed my mom into a wall and my mom was like, at that point was almost like 6 feet. Like I did. And I've never told anyone that. Like we got into an argument. I pushed her into a wall and my dad was like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I'm gonna jack you up. Cause that was his ride or die. Like my mom and dad were thick as thieves and he was not cool with that at all. And I just got frustrated with her. I was ready to go to college. Like I just needed to be out because we were just too similar. But at the same time, I didn't understand her trauma. I didn't understand. And we're not going to get as deep into it.
Right.
I didn't understand that. And I think that was once I started to understand it. And now that she's more open to it and she's having those conversations, you're right. Those tough conversations, Christina, I do the exact same thing to my mom now. She's 75. Yes, I did not like that. No, I didn't like that. Or I questioned the decisions that they made, or why didn't you hug us a lot and all that kind of stuff. And now she's more open to being very honest about the fact that, yes, she grew up in a traumatic situation and that is what created her to treat us the way that she did in certain ways and why she was hard and rigid in certain things growing up. And now she's all soft and amenable. She's like a teddy bear. And so it's like, I've gotten the time back. And I guess my question would be, knowing that, are you all open to getting the time back?
I definitely am. I'll say as my mom has gotten older, she's always kind of been sickly, but she's definitely been sicker. Mm-hmm. And I've been taking care of her a lot. That's what this soft era of my life has allowed me to do too, is go to her house and spend a week there if I need to, go to her doctor's appointments with her. And because the dynamics and how she needs me now, she's gotten a lot nicer. She's actually, I do think I broke through to her in 2020 when I was forcing these conversations. I saw a change and I felt like something went through. And she actually admitted to a couple things, which is big. She won't admit anything. I didn't do that. That didn't happen. Nope, it wasn't my fault. She did admit to a couple of things, which was big. And ever since then, she'll make a couple comments. Well, I can't do anything right to you. Every now and then she'll say that. But I got through to her. She heard me. And normally I don't feel heard. Normally she's talking over me and denying so hard. And like I said, the age and the sickness, she's realizing I've been there and I'm going to be there. And so it's made her a little softer. And in random conversation, in the most recent years, she's starting to slowly tell her story. And I'm seeing that trauma. And it shut me up. I kind of felt bad. And I was like, oh, why didn't you ever tell me this? And maybe she just couldn't. It was hard to admit. My mom's prideful. She has a humongous ego. To admit a couple things, the things she was admitting to me, it was just like, I can see why she never said that. And so I'm learning her story slowly. She's slowly letting things come out. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew, like she repeats the same stories all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know. And, I thought I knew her background. I'll save that for if I'm on the next episode. But, I'm like, oh, I thought I knew. There's more to that. And there's more, it's layered. And so, yeah, I'm definitely open to it because I do see slight change in her. And I think she sees herself a little bit here.
Wow. That's good.
That's good. That's good. Yolanda?
So as part of my healing journey and process, I realized that I have to live in reality versus the emotions of it all. Every little girl wants a relationship with their mom. My mother, and I've done a lot of research with my therapist on my own, she has narcissistic personality disorder. And with that, they have targets. And their targets, I'm a target. My aunt that passed was a target. My stepdad is a target. They have targets, and they will never see their faults. They will never be accountable for their actions. The most disappointing piece for me and all of my, just this journey is almost always someone with narcissistic personality disorder never change. So for me, it was, there were good times, but not good periods. And that's from earliest memory. So there's no, I want to go back to this. I had to grieve the thought of what I thought my mom would be, because I held on thinking it's going to get better. She's going to change. She's going to see that, I'm open to her. I'm there for whatever. But I know that that's probably not going to happen. So I have to be okay with knowing that that's probably not going to happen and focus more on the, she's going to do things. She can't directly do it. She's going to do it through family. There are going to be other Thanksgiving dinners I'm not invited to. I spend Christmas with my kids every year. She's now trying to pull them to her for Christmas. Like, she's going to do things. So my focus is on not letting Dad get to me, more so than I want to get to something we never had and may never have. If it happens, great. I'm not going to not be there and not show up and say, oh, this isn't supposed to happen. But realistically, it'll probably never happen.
I think that's good. I always like to say to people, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, just because... And we're talking about totally different people. And I think that that's important that we kind of highlight this here, because we are all unpacking quite a bit of trauma. Every trauma situation is not going to be healed through connection with that person. There are going to be moments where I have to love you from a distance. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with loving somebody from a distance, because your health, your happiness, and sanity is just as important as that relationship, if not even more so than that. Right. So I totally understand exactly where you're coming from. And I just want to make sure I reiterate that, because I don't want anybody walking away from these conversations thinking, oh, you got to love these trauma people back to life and bring them back into your life. That's not the kind of message I'm trying to give. It's just, you got to understand who's capable of change, who's not capable of change, and what are you willing to survive and accept and move forward with, and be happy with whatever decision that you make. Crissy, what about you? I mean, your situation is a lot different, because I know your mom,
Yeah, and it kind of ties into what Christina was saying. Like, I didn't learn a lot about my mom's story until after she passed, which then gave me a little bit more like sadness towards her. But it also showed me a lot about myself, because I always said, I'm nothing like her. I don't want to be like her. I don't want to be compared to her. I'm nothing like her. And then learning more about her past, I'm like, am exactly like her. And that's where this generational trauma will come into play, because it's just like, wow, our timelines and things that happen to us. And now I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to, not continue down the same path as her. And so I feel like, like you said, I wish that I had learned while she was still alive. Maybe we could have had a better relationship. But I was there for her when she was sick, when she needed a ride to the doctor's office, she needed money or bring her food or something like that. But to sit down and have dinner, holidays, birthdays, Mother's Day, I didn't celebrate none of that with her. And that was just that. And, I think if I do have kids, God willing, I hope I am a better example to them.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to have children at this age, but I definitely understand. That's where my mindset is, having a different level of relationships with my family and making sure that it's not the same way that it was. But I'm also not afraid that if I need to love you from a distance, I will love you from a distance. Like, my boundaries are in effect. I need to get them actually a little tighter. So just in case some of my relatives might be listening today, there's a few of y'all, you know exactly who you are. You know these boundaries are getting a little too weak.
Stop calling me for $5.
I need that tighten up a little bit on you. So I just had to, because it's a heavy conversation. And as we're wrapping up, because I know we are going to talk about part 2, and I would like all of us to come back if everyone is available to discuss generational trauma, because we've unpacked quite a bit in this, and we're all tap dancing around our trauma a little bit, a little bit with the grief and all that. So we need to kind of do that. So I'm going to invite everyone back. So we're going to talk about that separately, y'all. But to kind of end it on at least a somewhat, I guess, healing note, what is one thing that you have done to heal some of the way that you feel about your family members, or for yourself to find peace with it? What's one thing that you've done? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I didn't run from it. I dealt with it head on. I stayed in those ugly moments when it's like, I can't believe this. It's the tears, it's the heartache, it's the grief. I stayed there and I talked to my therapist. I have a good group of friends. I was just open. They allowed me to talk through it. It wasn't easy. It's like we discussed, 2 weeks ago, going through the process, like the process of letting go. That was my process of letting go. And I will say that despite it all, from 5 years old to now, I've had this, from grandmother's prayers to this grace and mercy over my life, that it never took away from who I am. Thank God, it never changed me. I was never bitter. I was never angry or hateful. I was just me. I show up and I'm me all the time. And by being that person, it allowed me to show up and be broken. It allowed me to be okay with being broken and then work through being broken. Where is it ideal now? No, like I said, every little girl wants that relationship with their mom, but I've accepted it and I'm not allowing it to stop me from living. Because obviously my purpose is to tell my story, because there are other girls and women that are in the same situation, that they'll know you'll be okay. Like, you will be okay.
Amen. You will be.
Yeah. What about you, Christina?
At one point I did seek therapy. Maybe, I think it was like 2019. I realized I needed therapy to process my stepmother. And I did not stick with that therapist. I don't think she was a good fit, but she did help briefly. I didn't seek another one since. So I do probably need to get back in therapy. But I seeked therapy. And as far as my mother, Yolanda, you're right. Narcissistic traits do not go away, and they are not going to go away. And I am her target, her only target. Have a plan. I now, as of last month, I'm constantly adding to that list, like my plan. Okay, this is what I got to do to avoid this or get out of this. When she traps me like this is how I get out. And I can identify when she's picking fights. I can identify her tactics better. And I'm like, I'll call you back. It's over. And I don't call her back. And now it's done. It's shut down completely. You got to ice them out. Have a plan. When somebody has these traits, they pick random times. They catch you off guard. Have a plan. That's all.
Like that. Crissy?
Yeah. I mean, I went to therapy. I still go to therapy. A lot of prayer, reading the Bible, devotionals, journaling. But I think therapy has probably been the biggest thing that has helped me, because it just allows me to just kind of put yourself in other people's shoes, because like I said before, like people have their own history and their own experiences that they went through before we were even here. So I just kind of try to understand more now that I just have my dad. I feel like me leaning on him a little bit more now and learning more about his past has definitely allowed me, because me and my dad butt heads a lot. We went a whole year without talking before. And he was one of those men that, like, growing up, like those dads, like, he had that one big eye and one little eye when he told you something and you was scared. And now as an adult, I'm like, my dad's the biggest freaking teddy bear, whatever. I just smack him upside the head, like, but as a kid, you're scared to do that. So, just learning, like, he's human too. There's no handbook that comes when you have a child. You don't get no kind of manual. You just get the baby wrapped up in a blanket and here you go. Good luck. But so just knowing that just kind of allows me to be a little bit softer with him. But at the same time, letting him know, like, I am an adult as well. I'm not the 18-year-old girl that left to move to New York. But I am the 18-year-old girl that left and moved to New York. So I have to put some respect on my name. Okay.
Exactly. And that's why I said some of, boundaries is critical. Yeah. I have to admit, for me, that's the key. Boundaries, and I still need help. Jesus is still working on me with that, because I tend to be a little too soft sometimes, but they're out there. However, for me, I'm trying to seek to understand versus me trying to make you into who I want you to be. Like, I had to stop trying to want a certain type of relationship or vision for my brother. I had to stop wanting, all these things from family. They're only operating from where they're capable of, and that's okay. And I had to learn how to understand that. That's why I always say sometimes when we're healing like this, ego is the first thing that has to die in order for you to be open and receptive to being able to heal, because you have to understand it's not about you. You don't know what that person went through. You don't understand their full vantage point. And until you do, or have the empathy to be able to see it differently, it's going to be really hard for you to move forward. So I'm trying to operate more from a place of understanding, more from a place of empathy, with some boundaries and respect, because I totally agree. I'm too old for the games now. And so put some respect on my name. If I need to cut you off, that's definitely not what I want. But if I need to, my block game can get super strong, just like anybody else. I did. I just told my cousin the other day, I was like, my mom, I said, I think I need to block such and such. And my mom she just started laughing and shaking her head. But I was like, I think I just need to block for a little bit. I was just angry. I didn't do it. But it's just like, that's where I feel like it is. And I love the fact that each of you have boundaries and are respecting yourself on this healing journey, because it's not perfect, but it's perfectly imperfect for us. And it's going to help us heal. So that is episode 1 of this big trauma ball, I guess we're unleashing.
Part one of the trauma ball.
And next week is generational trauma and grief. Ladies, I would love to have you guys on, because I think like I said, we've kind of tapped down some things. I know I have a little bit, but I think we're on to something. So
Yes.
I hope for everyone who's listening this week that you've seen the fact that, yeah, we all have a lot of traumas, and a lot of our traumas are very similar, and they have strained relationships. They have changed us. They have grown and we're growing from it. We're healing from it, and we hope that you heal a little bit with us. So I will have all of these wonderful ladies' information in the show notes. And definitely please send us questions or feedback or anything that you have about this episode, because we want to help you. Like, I don't want to see anybody struggle, because we have to deal with these parts of ourselves so that we can be free. Because they're, like, to me, the biggest weights that hold a lot of us down. And so you got to start to deal with your stuff if you're going to move forward into other things, especially other relationships and all kinds of things. So lots to do here, but I definitely look forward to talking to everyone again next week. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will talk again soon.